My first thought was I really couldn't believe that it was mine, and that our vision had really just come to fruition, and that this is a space I get to call home and practice in for many, many years to come.
This project type is a great fit for Down in Construction because we really focus on small business owners that are growing, and both ValueVet and Discover Cairo were looking to grow their business, and they needed a solution.
We judge our success by the success of our clients, and when I see a parking lot that has cars in it and clients being served, that's a big deal to me, and know that we succeeded, which means our clients are going to succeed.
In business and in life, every journey you take comes down to a handful of moments. These are the moments that test you, push you, try to break you, and at the end of the day, define you. These are your pivotal moments. But you don't have to face them alone. Pivotal moments in your business demand courage and clear vision. At Brown Winnick, our trusted business attorneys partner with you to craft bold solutions rooted in wisdom and experience, so you can face the future with confidence. When your moment comes, be bold, be wise. Brown Winnick.
I'm Ryan Collins.
And I'm Tessa Dinsdale.
And we're with Lincoln Savings Bank.
And we want to thank the Des Moines Partnership for including us in your summit this year.
We know that small businesses throughout Iowa have felt the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. And we just want to let you know that we're here to help.
Whether you need additional funds for working capital or better repayment terms, please contact us.
We are passionate about our communities and we want to see you succeed.
When it comes to choosing a financial partner, it's important to choose one that cares about your business as much as you do. Whether you're just beginning to build your business, are planning for growth, or are managing your business's ongoing financial needs, Bankers Trust can help you every step of the way. And if you have personal banking and wealth management needs, we have you covered there too. Don't just take it from us. More than 90% of our customers would recommend Bankers Trust to friends and family. Learn more at bankerstrust.com.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We hope you've enjoyed these sessions the last 2 days, and we are excited to be wrapping up our session with keynote speaker Whitney Cox. Whitney has been a speaker of ours for the 4 years we've done this, and she's amazing. She always ranks as one of our most beloved speakers at this event. And she is going to talk to us about building teams. And if you've learned anything this year, it's how important your team is. So it's my pleasure to introduce Whitney Cox. Whitney leads content and curriculum for Google's marketing and training team, an internal team that is upskilling Google's marketing global through online and offline learning experiences. Whitney has been working with Google for over 8 years. Prior to joining the marketer training team, Whitney led educational programs for Grow with Google, Google's initiative to create economic opportunity for all Americans by sharing free tools and training. Whitney's a proud graduate of the University of Iowa, and she is happy to call Des Moines, Iowa, her home. Please welcome Whitney Cox.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much, Christina, for that warm welcome. I am thrilled to be back at the Des Moines Small Business Summit this year. I wish we were all in person like in past years, but I'm also very thankful to have technology like this that enables us to continue to connect and be together this way. So I'm taking a different spin on content this year because it's important that businesses are able to support their teams and help them continue to be productive in light of all of the changes and struggles that the pandemic has created for people. So I'll be sharing tips about Google's approach to building effective teams. And if you were tuning in hopes of getting to hear about some of Google's products for businesses, stay tuned. At the end, I'll be sharing a few slides with links to great free educational platforms that you can use to continue your education. So first, a quick agenda. I'm going to be chatting a little bit about people operations first, which is our HR team. 2, I'm going to talk about how Google enables innovation at all costs. 3, I'm going to talk about how we use our mission, we use transparency, and we use our voice to support our teams. And then lastly, I'm going to share those resources that I just mentioned. So people operations. In November of last year, I actually moved teams. So I moved teams almost exactly the same time that the Small Business Summit was last year. I had spent 7 years at Google creating content and working with small businesses in Google's marketing department. And in November, I was offered a role on an internal team that sits within people operations that focuses on marketer training. So how do we help scale educational resources to our own Google marketers? And it was quite timely, actually. I was brought on board to help scale trainings. And then within a few months, we were all working from home. So scaling that message and scaling that education was more important than ever. So now I am on that people operations team, like I said, and other teams call this the HR department. But since it pays to know your audience, operations sounds a little bit more engineering, and we are an engineering company. So we went with operations a long time ago. I have not created this name. A long time ago, Google created this HR department called People Operations. And we also switched the focus from processes to why this all matters, why the HR department does what they do, and that's because of the people. So People Operations was born. And at Google, we find amazing individuals who and we put a ton of resources into ensuring we care and help these people and help them learn and grow as individuals and hopefully into leaders to make it easy for them to do the jobs they were hired for. And that's what we do on people operations, but that's not our job. Our job in POPs is what we lovingly call it, is to help create environments that help these Googlers, help these people do extraordinary things at every stage of the employee life cycle. And from their first conversation with a recruiter to meeting their teams, to being promoted and more, as you can see, we've analyzed hundreds of potential touch points where we can make things better for our people. So that a huge piece of this is data. You might not imagine an HR department to rely heavily on data, but we actually have a team of researchers and scientists that sit within the POPs organization. And we use data because data helps build a level of trust within our organization. Googlers know that the decisions that the POPs or HR department makes is because of science. It's grounded in information that we've learned along the way and data. It still doesn't make everyone happy about all of the decisions that POPs creates, but it does help them understand why we make the decisions that we make. So data is, in my opinion, what sets Google's HR, people operations, approach apart from other standard HR companies. We are an engineering company, and data is in the language and currency that we use to get everything done. So no matter the decision being made, the questions are always, what's the question we're asking or the problem we're solving? What data are you using to assess this problem? What data will you use to determine if your efforts are successful? And you can apply those questions to all sorts of problems, of course. And one example is teams. So we looked at those questions and thought about teams. While we hire individual people and we pay individual people and we evaluate the performance individually, most of the work that's actually happening in the day-to-day is happening. This is actually, I mean, you might be surprised, but it's actually even more true now that we're working from home. Google is still on a work from home mandate and folks are not sitting next to each other in the office. I have never been. I've been working in Des Moines, Iowa remotely forever. So when this all went down, well, forever, 8 years I've been at Google, which feels like forever. When this all went down, everybody was immediately reaching out to me, give me tips, help me. Like, how do I learn how to work remotely? And what we have learned is that teams are still vital to somebody's success, whether they work in the office or like sitting next to one another or working from home. And it's been more important to rely on technology like video conference, online chat, and collaboration tools like Google Docs. And it's been even more obvious how vital a team is. So we wanted to think about what makes a great team. So what comes to mind when you think of a great team, when you think of an effective team? And I'm going to use this opportunity to take a sip of water so that you can actually take a moment to think back. And I encourage you to take a piece of paper and a pen or pencil and write down what great experience have you had on a team, and why was it a great experience? I wish we were all in person so that I could go around with the microphone running around the room and asking you all to answer that question for me, but we can't. So hopefully you wrote down a bunch of great adjectives to describe effective teams that you've been on the past. And if you're lucky, you might be on that team right now. We want to understand what separates those incredible teams from ones that look like this. It is very difficult to find an image of a virtual unhappy team. So just imagine that this image that I'm showing you right now shows the current situation where a bunch of sad people are sitting at homes in front of their computers working. Unfortunately, that reality does exist. There are a lot of not so effective teams. And we wondered what goes wrong. What happens between those effective teams and teams that look like this? And we weren't the first to wonder those questions. A quick search of your favorite Google search engine reveals hundreds of thousands of books and articles and other resources about the science behind effective teams. These on the slide are just a few. But when dealing with the complexity of people, context matters a lot. And a lot of the research done on these resources and these books is actually done on students, specifically MBA students. And we knew we needed to do a study on our people. Google needed to figure out what was happening within our own teams and our own people. So we did research, and I'm using the royal we. I'm not a part of the research team. I'm here to do training. I'm not part of the science and research team. So when I say we, I'm definitely talking about the royal we. We did research. We did over 201 interviews across over 180 teams globally. We analyzed different inputs to figure out how things like who's on the team and what does effective even look like. So we had a whole bunch of research that we needed to do to answer some of those questions. Here's a sample of some of the inputs we looked at. So we looked at a lot of different things, and we ended up with two key metrics: the characteristics of the people on the team and the dynamics of the team. And when we started this project, we didn't know what we were going to find. We imagined that our most successful teams were going to be ones with a certain type of composition. For instance, the largest number of star performers or the most senior people. That's what we thought we would find out. We were happily proven wrong. It wasn't teams that had the most stars. It wasn't teams that had the most tenure. It wasn't the ones that sat in the same location, luckily. Specifically, we found 5 things that were common across all high-performing teams. We found that it matters less who is on the team and more about how the team works together that makes all the difference. So I'm going to pause for a second and let that sink in a little bit. It wasn't about who is on the team. The amount of star players on a team did not matter. It was about how the team worked together that made all the difference. And this is really, really good news. If you are on a team that's not performing, I hope that's not you, but if you are, you don't have to fire everybody. You don't have to fire everybody on your team, because there are ways to help teams work better together and provide that opportunity to become a great team. I'll take a sip of water again and let this slide sink in a little bit, because I think it's so important to know. Another thing that I think is really important to know about this slide is we know that the majority of businesses fail not because of the business idea, not because of the finances. It's actually because of people. It's because of you're having difficulty filling positions with the right person. Those are the reasons that businesses fail, but you don't actually need to find stars. You need to figure out how to help your teams work more effective, because how they work together makes all the difference. Here specifically are 5 things that the highest performing teams in our research did well. Psychological safety. So what do we mean by psychological safety? Can we on the team take risks without feeling insecure or embarrassed? Dependability. Can we count on each other to do high quality work on time? And I would argue this study was done before 2020, and I would argue that dependability is even more important now. I mean, obviously it was one of the top 5 most important things, but it's even more important now when you're not actually sitting next to one another. So can you count on each other? 3 are the goals, roles, and execution plans on your team clear? Or is everybody on the team flying by the seat of their pants? Does everybody know what they're doing and know where they want to go? Meaning, this is a big one. Are we working on something that is personally important for each of us? And there are ways to make something mean something to other people. This is about marketing. You as the leader can think about ways to show that the work that everybody is doing is having meaning and help them see that meaning for themselves. Impact. Do we fundamentally believe that the work we're doing matters? And again, I would argue that these last 2, meaning and impact, are all a matter of thinking about your communications. Think about how you're marketing your company to your team to help them find that meaning and impact. And I'm going to talk about some things a little bit later that show you how Google has done this. So if you can answer yes to all of those 5 questions, great, woohoo! You are much more likely to be on a high-performing team. And if not, I don't have much time today, but there's a shortcut of where you can focus most of your energy. And that is psychological safety. So Amy Edmondson is a professor at Harvard Business School, spearheaded research on how and why workplace silence happens and what effect it has on how employees opt to manage their impressions internally over speaking up. When employees stay silent, Amy talks about missed opportunities to realize necessary change, innovation, and even to see potential issues in the business. So, definition, being able to take risks or make yourself vulnerable without worrying that you'll be judged. So, take yourself back to the last time that you were truly stuck. You're maybe in the middle of a large project. You're maybe so stuck that all of a sudden the goal of the project becomes completely unclear. You lost sense of what you're working towards. You wanted to ask questions, but you were worried that you would seem stupid. When you withhold your questions, when you don't share those questions, not only are you making your team less efficient, but you also rob yourself and your team members with those small moments of learning, those moments that help everyone be better and create that understanding. And I'm going to take another long drink of water so you can think about a time in your own business where maybe you might have witnessed either this happening to yourself, where you didn't necessarily feel comfortable taking that risk or speaking up, or where you saw maybe somebody else sort of clamming up and being unable to move forward. I hope that you were able to find one of those. I mean, I hope that you weren't able to find one of those opportunities and that you're already on an effective team. But I imagine a lot of you might be able to, now that you're thinking about it, pinpoint some of those moments. And I'll be very honest with you. An example for me was this summer. So after the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent outpouring for our Black community worldwide, I had a lot of feelings. It brought out a ton of feelings in me. It makes me emotional even thinking about it right now. I had frustration and ignorance at my own white privilege. I had sadness for my Black colleagues and friends and community members to which none of this was new to them. And I was confused about my next steps, about how I might take a more active approach to allyship, and much, much more. There was so many thoughts going on in my head, and this was all compounded because of the pandemic, the coronavirus crisis. And I'm sure many of you throughout this year have been undergoing your own battles. Well, luckily, I have a manager who is fully committed to building a team grounded in safety. And this is a team where we all feel like we can bring our true selves to work. We can have conversations and be open and honest with each other. I didn't worry about being judged for what I said or what I didn't say. And just knowing that I had that outlet, knowing that I didn't have to put up a front, that I didn't have to clam up, that made all of the difference. Alternatively, imagine somebody on your team going through something like this, and having all of these questions arise and feeling a little bit lost and confused. And if you're on a team where people don't feel like they can bring their true selves to work, they might bottle all of that up. They might hold on to it and internalize it. And that would have definitely taken a toll on my work output. You would have been able to tell right away. And that might be happening to people on your team. So think about how you can create those moments to help them be open and honest. And I'm going to share more about how you might do that as leaders in the coming slides. So you might be wondering how this affected sales. Well, when we looked at how sales team in our sample performed against their target revenue, we saw that on average, teams that did not feel safe missed their revenue targets by 19%, whereas teams that expressed feeling safe exceeded their targets by almost the same amount. So I'm going to reiterate this. I think I've already said it, but teams that feel safe taking risks are much more likely to ask for help. They're more willing to admit mistakes, and they're more willing to take on new roles because they're not scared of what that might mean. By doing this, they learn, and by doing this, your whole team learns, and they become more effective, both individually and collectively. So how do you do this? A lot of work about creating psychological safety is really up to the leader. So let me talk about some ways you can help enable this. One way Google does it is by enabling innovation at all costs. And this is a way we create a safe environment. If Googlers are hired for their knowledge, for innovation and ability to stretch to the edge of impossible, then the culture to speak up has to be comfortable so that people vocalize and contribute those thoughts and ideas. So I'll repeat that. If you're hiring people and you really want their ideas, you're bringing them in for their knowledge, it is vital that you create an environment where they have the ability to use that voice and share that knowledge. As Amy said in a blog post, a lack of psychological safety can be found at the root of many noteworthy organizational errors and failures. One way Google creates psychological safety, as I said, is encouraging this innovation. And we do it by something called 10x thinking. It's sometimes called a moonshot. And thinking 10x is all about coming up with radical solutions to huge problems. These solutions provide a 10 times improvement to the way things are currently done. Not just 10%. I didn't say 10%. I said a 10 times improvement. And one of the most amazing examples of this in history is Henry Ford, as you can see on this slide. He said, if you had asked the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. If you would ask the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. That is 10% better. That is minimally better. That's a small incremental change. Ford instead focused on radical, futuristic ideas to produce that 10x thinking. Google encourages its employees to make long-term bets in order to find opportunities to really expand projects, explore ideas, and these ideas might seem big and scary and take a lot of time to really unpack. But Googlers are encouraged to not be scared to take those risks because failure is very common when you're thinking this big. And Googlers are encouraged to fail fast and to fail often. This is Astro Teller. He runs Google X. And aside from having the best name ever, Astro Teller, he also runs our Moonshot Factory. So everybody that sits on that team of people thinking those 10x giant thoughts and failing all of the time report up to him. He has this great talk that he does about the pre-mortem. So I'm not talking about the post-mortem after everything's said and done. I'm talking about the pre-mortem before your project even launches, right before you're about to launch it. You think about, okay, imagine launch day. All of the work that you've been doing comes to this moment. What happens? It's a horrible disaster. What could go wrong? How is it going to fail? What are all of the ways it's going to fail? It's a horrible failure. Let's talk about it. So he gets his entire team engaged in thinking about the worst possible scenarios. He is essentially creating a very, very low risk space where everyone is engaged in a common goal of identifying potential problems. So I think that's one really, really cool technique that he does to create that safe space for the team to be open and honest with each other. So everybody is sitting around and they're just listening about all the ways that could go wrong. Not only does it help them pinpoint potential ways that it could go wrong, but it also makes everybody feel honest, voicing their insecurities about the project launch. Another way Google bakes in the idea of psychological safety is through enablement programs. And one of these programs is called the 20% Project. If you have an idea to solve any business challenge, even if it's not related to your current role, actually, especially if it's not related to your current role, you can make a case to get funding for the project or get allocated time from your manager to take 20% of your time to work on that project. And Googlers aren't just told that they have this opportunity, they're encouraged to do it. So we do performance cycles twice a year. And at each performance cycle, I'm asked, am I doing a 20% project? If not, what are potential 20% projects that I can do, not just to solve problems, to solve 10x problems, but also to grow myself as a Googler and find opportunities to learn more and advance my career. So I think the 20% Project is a really great example of how Googlers are encouraged to find opportunities to fail or to solve something new, and they're not worried about doing that. So another big place that, and this is all stuff that the people operations team has impacted directly, is through Google's mission, how we are transparent, and Google's voice. And these are internal operating principles that we are constantly thinking about. So earlier I mentioned, I'm really focusing on psychological safety today, but earlier I mentioned that two other things that were really important for those effective teams was also feeling like you have some meaning in what you're doing. You can see the impact. And I think this is one of those ways when I say you can just, it's a matter of marketing to help your employees find that meaning. And this is how Google does that. We have some internal marketing going on with our mission transparency and our voice. And these tenets have been incredibly important to us always, especially as we have grown. Mission. We believe that any strong organization needs a clear and relevant mission. Many organizations have really bland missions like realize shareholder value or make more money. things like that that don't necessarily get your teams amped up or feeling like they're contributing to something really meaningful. So Google's mission is to organize all the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Organize all of the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Now, that is a mission I can get behind. That is a mission that inspires me. And from day one of being onboarded, we are taught this mission. And every single Googler, no matter where they are, I encourage you to test this. If you know somebody that works at Google, besides me, which we are friends now, so you could test it on me, but I know it. Every single Googler knows that mission by heart and can say it to you automatically, because it's one of the ways that we find meaning. That is a really powerful mission statement. Organize all the world's information. How cool is that? So think about how you can flip your mission statement a little bit to help folks see the power behind what they're doing, what it's contributing toward. Transparency. We, for good and bad, as you may know, if you read about Google in the news, we default to sharing as much internally as possible. We share upcoming product launches, internal surveys, company-wide objectives. We share a lot with our Googlers. And one of the ways we do this is through our TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. We have this every week without fail. It's not on Fridays anymore. And because of accessibility, it's on Thursday evenings so that we can ensure that our folks in APAC and EMEA are able to watch it. So every single week, our leadership does a TGIF, and it live streams to every single office. And we give the ability for Googlers to answer any question they want. They stand up and they ask it, no matter how polarizing it might be. And there have been some zingers. And they encourage that because they want people to come back and challenge the status quo. Another way we do this is through our Google Guys. So every year we do a company-wide survey and we share it with folks so that they can actually rank their teams, their managers, their skip levels, their directors, their VPs. So everybody can talk about their productivity, their happiness level, if they have plans to leave Google anytime soon. And our leadership takes this incredibly seriously, and they work through solving problems every year because of this Google Guys. Lastly, failure tolerance for risk. We use OKRs, objectives, and key results as our goal setting mechanism, and they are by design supposed to be stretch goals. You're kind of supposed to rarely reach them. Every quarter, all of our leadership looks at them and they say, that's not enough. If you're able to hit that OKR every quarter, it is not good enough. You need to be barely hitting it all of the time. It needs to be incredibly risky and scary. And you're not penalized if you don't reach it. Voice. Voice is another part where we work really hard to instill safety in Googlers. We give them a lot of opportunities to share feedback. So this is one of those things. We have this tool called Dory. It's essentially a moderator tool where people can submit questions, and during all hands and during meetings, leadership will take all of those questions. You can actually vote them up. So Googlers can see those and vote them up, and they can be anything and everything. They can be specifically on the topic, or they can be something like this person has said, can we change how conference rooms are reserved? So we encourage people to find those opportunities to improve the company, not just the products. Bureaucracy Busters was started by our previous CFO. This is a program that allows any Googlers to submit an issue or red tape frustration. The idea is that good ideas can come from anywhere. You don't have to have them as the leader. We actually want new people to use their fresh eyes, and we encourage them to ask as many questions as possible. And they don't feel nervous about seeming silly. They don't get nervous because we have created this culture where everybody can speak up about anything. And those fresh eyes are super vital. You could miss something that you've been doing for a long time if you don't provide that opportunity for new people to speak up and you don't encourage them to ask those questions about why you do the things that you do. Groups is another way. We have Google Groups or mailing lists that you can sign up for and be on if you want to take part in something or weigh in on something or raise your hand for a certain group. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about groups in a minute. Go/say something. This is a thing that we do for anonymously sharing anything that somebody wants to share. So it can be really extreme, from somebody feels very uncomfortable, or it can just be something little, like the chairs are really uncomfortable to me. But we have this way that Googlers can always share this private anonymized feedback, and we take these things very seriously. We call it go/say something, and it's essentially a form that is always open, that is always monitored, that people feel comfortable reporting incidents to. Lastly, our Thanks program. We have a peer-to-peer award system. And this was born from the idea that you should encourage new things. You should encourage people to collaborate and work together and try different projects out. And Thanks is such a cool program, because if somebody does something for someone else, you can just send them Thanks, and it shows their manager that they went above and beyond. It actually gives them a tiny little bonus. And I think there's different ways that you can do it. You don't have to actually award people with money, but I think a program like this can be replicated in most businesses. It's essentially saying, if you're hard to work with and people don't like working with you, if you don't go above and beyond for the team and contribute to the team, nobody's going to Thanks you. And your manager can see that. It really encourages people to step up and really support everyone else, because they might get this Thanks. Obviously, I'm assuming if they're a great teammate, they're not doing it for this, but it's just another way to help give them that accolade. I mentioned groups a second ago. A big thing that we do at Google is to give voice to our underrepresented groups, or URGs. This is just a sampling of them. People have the ability to self-organize groups depending on anything. I'm in a remote women group because I work remotely and I'm a woman. You can be a part of any of these as an ally if you wanted to, or you could self-organize your own. And it's really an opportunity for people to learn from each other's experiences, backgrounds, and give them an outlet for sharing more about their personal identity. And it gives them a voice. They can feel safe bringing their full selves to work because they have a group of people like them, and we encourage them to find those connections. So groups is another great way that Google works to create psychological safety. You're encouraged to join groups. You're encouraged to create groups. You could even do it as part of your 20% project to create a new group and lead it and find opportunities for meetings for this group. So a lot of different ways that Google works to inspire their teams, to help them innovate, and it's all grounded in psychological safety. It's all grounded in how we can make sure that Googlers feel safe enough to bring their true selves to work, to be transparent and honest, and to ask questions and speak up and really work together toward a common goal. Whew, okay, that was a lot. I'm going to pause for a second and drink some more water before I share some quick resources and some next steps for you. What can you do? I mentioned this earlier. A lot of psychological safety really comes from the manager or the leader. It's up to you to think of all of the different ways that you could enable opportunities for your team to bring their full selves to work and feel safe. So there are some ways, those ones I just said are some ways that Google does it, but here are some specific tips for you that you can do for your own team. One, frame your team's work as a problem. And by problem, I mean a learning problem, not an execution problem. So what we're working on is a learning problem, not an execution problem. If you think about problems at the execution level, automatically people will be on the line and they'll be on guard. But if you frame it as a learning opportunity, then it sets it up like it's the entire team's responsibility. So here's an example of how you might say that. We are working on huge problems. We need everyone's best ideas on the table. This creates the rationale for speaking up. You're not just pointing at somebody and saying, you complete this. You're saying, we all need to figure these things out together. 2, let your team members feel like they can control the process. Admit your infallibility. It might be hard for some people to do, but you should say things like, I may miss something, or I'd love for the whole team to be on the lookout. This gives them permission and safety to voice those opinions. As leaders, you should think about, who am I not hearing? Where can I get perspectives other than my own? We all have blind spots. Let's be honest, we all have blind spots, but I have had a lot of managers in my career, and the best ones are the managers who say to me, tell me what you think about this problem. Share your opinion instead of saying things like, here's what needs done, make it happen. If they're inviting me in to collaborate on the process from the beginning, I'm much more invested in its success. And lastly, model curiosity. So you're modeling all of this. You should model all of the tips I shared today about psychological safety. You should be open and honest with your team. You should tell them how you're feeling and give them an opportunity to do the same. And you should model curiosity and ask a lot of questions. Be curious, be interested. Why do you think we're doing this? Is this the right thing that we should be doing? How could we do this differently? This is what I put in place, but maybe we need to change it. It's 2020. 2020 is a weird year. Where can we make our team more effective and efficient? If you are asking those questions, it automatically helps the rest of your team feel like they can ask those questions. You can learn more at g.co/rework. I barely touched the surface, but we have this great site, g.co/rework. It includes guides to what we've done at Google, case studies and success stories at the company, and tools that can help you implement what we talked about today. There's sections about managers, there's sections for hiring, there's sections about unconscious bias, which is so important. Everybody needs to find those blind spots, and people analytics. So I encourage you to go to g.co/rework. I know I mentioned that I would be sharing resources for businesses. Grow with Google is my old team, and they are the team that is constantly creating free educational trainings, workshops, and they even have virtual coaching for businesses. So I encourage you to go to g.co/grow-on-air. That's actually, they're doing this new session where they do grow on air, and I don't know how often it is. It's a lot. Maybe it could be weekly, maybe monthly, but they're doing workshops for businesses. They're free to tune into on a variety of topics. They're also doing these workshops for job seekers. So if that's somebody that you know is looking for a job, they give you tips on how you can help be a little bit more valuable to businesses that you are applying for. We have previous classes on Google Ads, YouTube, and Google Analytics and Google Advertising. So check that out. Again, that's a free resource. And then there's also these quick help videos. So if you don't have time to sit through an entire hour-long presentation, but you want to start seeing little quick snippets, g.co/grow/quick help. So I've mentioned a lot of links to you today. If you remember g.co/grow, that'll get you to most of the tools for all of the tools for small businesses that I mentioned. So g.co/grow. And again, all those resources are free, and they're constantly coming out with new things. So I encourage you to check that out. And if you want to dig more into how to improve your team effectiveness, check out Rework. And that is it for me. Thank you so much. I can't remember exactly what time I was supposed to end. I think I'm close.
You are right on time. So thank you so much, Whitney. I just think it's amazing. And I think people have such a huge opportunity to grow their teams coming out of this. So thank you for the great information. And of course, thanks for Google for being our patron sponsor today. You're always very generous, and it really helped us be able to move this and keep it going forward. with doing it virtual. So we are going to wrap up the day. I just wanted to, there's been a lot of questions about the recording. So we will, in the next couple weeks, we need to trim all the information and we will get the links posted back out on the Summit website, which is dsmpartnership.com/summit. So we will work as fast as we can to get those together, but please give us a couple weeks to trim that down and get those up for you. I did want to just personally thank each and every one of you for being here. I know this year has been like no other, and to be able to take 2 half days out of your business to focus on it moving forward for the next year is a huge opportunity, and we appreciate you being here and trusting us to deliver great content for you to be able to do that. We realize that you're working tirelessly for your community to make it a better place, and we look forward to frequenting your businesses here in town. I do want to extend a huge thank you to our sponsors, Kauffman Foundation, The Business Record, Google, La Cubana 1069, Goldman Sachs, Hatch, Downing, Brown Winnick, Lincoln Savings Bank, Bankers Trust, Iowa Economic Development Authority, Cirrus, PDT, CPAs and Advisors, Mid-American Energy, Drake Entrepreneurship Center, City of Ankeny, Iowa Center, NABO, Fuse DSM, as well as our supporting sponsors. I do want to give a huge shout out because there is a lot of our partnership team that has been running past interference in the background to make this possible for all of you today. So a huge thank you to my team for helping me pull this off. And we will look forward to seeing you hopefully in person in 2021. If we can help you in any way, shape, or form, please feel free to reach out to me at cmoffett@smpartnership.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you all for being here.